Okay, let's get started. So, if you look at the charts on the second there, so I have a new setup today. So the plan is to have something running, most of the time. So it's a different Discord account, and it allows us to stream that from a different PC pretty much 24/7, even when I close my laptop. So this allows you then to look at the charts without having to set up your own trading view charts and trying to read them. Now, obviously, it's just going to be basically ES with VIX below it, like we have here. And then in the mornings when VIX is still not open or overnight, I will probably just put up ES for NQ, and you can watch that. If you want to have access to your own charts and other tickers, then obviously you will have to set up your own chart. Okay, so let's just start at the top like we always did. Okay, so this is by so um, there's no open gaps remaining right now. So that's always something I want to look at, because if there's a gap that still remains open very close by, then it's going to act like a magnet closer you get to it. And usually you don't have decent price action until it closes. And then sometimes you get a reversal, but that's not a requirement. Okay, so that looks good. So we're obviously bullish. You can see that we're above that band up there. We're moving from you know, bottom left to top right. So clearly, it's a bullish market. Uh, so any kind of shorts may not last very long. But let's see. So this is now the 4-hour chart that we'd like to look at next, and get that. So you can see right now. So that was Friday. Obviously, big red day. Right now, the day is red as well. And we're above the open. Take a look at this one. So 15-minute chart. So on Friday we had this failed breakdown. So that, and then we stayed above it. So that gave the bulls an advantage. So you can see that Sunday night there was a push up, then there was another failed breakdown. So again, those failed breakdowns gave the bulls the advantage. You can see that clearly how price kept pushing up and pushing up. But clearly that has changed with this rejection here. Basically, we had a double top here on ES on the pre-market levels. But let's take a look at it a little bit deeper. So this is the 5-minute chart. So we're just starting at the high levels, because when you look at trading, you got to understand what's happening at the higher levels, and then you can drill into it. So looking at that, you can see there was a rejection there, and then you could see basically strong downward candles. We had a little bit of a bounce just to trap more bulls, and then we kept going down. So if you look at this 5-minute price action right now, clearly the bears are in control. Okay, so you gotta realize that. You gotta know when you gotta flip. But you can see there how we just double tapped there, and actually we typed in some messages in Discord. Let's take a look at the signals from this morning. So this is the 1-minute chart. We have ES at the top, and then we have VIX here below it. You can see where we had some pretty decent signals going up and down. If at the market open, it's not uncommon to have this kind of whiplash here, where it looks like we want to go up because we're bouncing off an upward sloping VWAP, which is always a good trade to take. But this is pre-market, but and when market opens up, you can expect higher volume to come in. So if bouncing off an upward sloping VWAP is a better trade during market hours, you can see obviously it worked there and it worked a little bit there, but then the market open used that just as a way to trap bulls. So you got to understand the transition here. The pre-market have very, very low volume, and it's not uncommon for things to drastically change. And just like Ajaru posted in that message, that first 30 minutes of the day is amateur hour. Um, and you can see here, as soon as they trap some bulls, then we got a signal you're short. But let's just dig in a little bit more because I think it's very important for you to be able to read the price action here at the open. So the pre-market hours we have grayed out a little bit, so it's just easier to see. And you can see that right here at the open, we started dumping. Okay, but you can see VIX, and sometimes you'll find that VIX, even though this is a 1 minute chart, many times there will be candles missing from the VIX, and I'm not sure exactly why, honestly. But sometimes there's just no candles on the 1 minute chart at the open for VIX, and then it can be a little bit misleading. But if you move your mouse and you have the right settings here, it will synchronize the crosshair if you turn that on. So basically, that just makes it a little bit easier to see where they line up. But you can see right here at the open, VIX was pushing up. And I'm just going to go to the dedicated VIX chart. So if we go there, so just ignoring the pre-market action, so you can see here. So even if you got into a long prematurely, you should have immediately seen that it's not working and you should have immediately stopped out of that long because VIX is clearly giving you big yellow candles. And you can see the alpha zone inverting and you can see VIX holding above the alpha zone and respecting it. So again, I use VIX as a way to see if the market is chopping. So if you look at this, VIX is inside of the alpha zone quite a bit, and this shows me that it's not a good time to trade. This shows me it's not a good time to trade. But you can see here, when you look at VIX, you can see that clearly it's got some directionality to it. You can see how VIX is clearly saying that, we are, you know, pushing up, VIX is pushing up, and that makes ES and NQ put a downward pressure on it. Now you can see also right here, you have a big blue candle on VIX. So this might be where there's a turn in the market. So when you see a big candle like this, you can see it's full bodied there. Boom, boom. There's no wick. Like if you look at this blue candle there, there's a big wick on it. You can see now, obviously it's got more of a wick, but it's also a much bigger candle. So this is what a turn in the market many times look like. So let's go and look at yes, and that's exactly. So you can see how we got that confirmation here from VIX. We got this move, and this time they pretty much happened at the same time, so it would have been hard. Sometimes VIX will give you those signals even before it turns, and you can catch a good move. But in this case, it happened at the same time. So you could argue that maybe VIX didn't add a lot of value, but the value it adds is it gives you more confirmation, and it is um, a little bit of a better chance that it will turn. And nothing is guaranteed in this market. So when you see a turn, you got to know that market does what she wants. It's not guaranteed that it's going to last. But so let's look at NQ You can see NQ bouncing off the Bollinger Bands here, but very, very choppy here. We compare that to ES. You can see ES is much cleaner because it respected the alpha zone going down all the way. So we had a beautiful short signal here. Again, when you get the short signal, you shouldn't be jumping in on that red candle. This is telling you that you're looking for shorts, which means that you want to look for a bounce and shorting it. And here, now you can see the VWAP is downward sloping and we're rejecting it from the bottom. So that is a trade worth the risking. And you can see we have a short signal, we bounce, reject a downward sloping VWAP, and then lock in profits on big candles in your favor. So if you're in here, you took the short, your first profit target, needless to say, would be the pre-market low. And then the other times that you're going to lock in more profit is when you have big candles in your favor. You can see that we have a bounce here, but then we're staying below the alpha zone, and so we're respecting it. So if you had a runner, a runner, we don't, this is after, let's see, where's 10 a.m.? So 10 a.m. only here. The first half an hour, it's a little bit hard. You don't always get a trend starting there, so it could fake you out. But if you're going to keep a runner because you have built up profits, you got to make sure that that runner has a stop loss so that you cannot lose money. Don't let that green trade go red. But as long as you stay below this alpha zone, which is the two blue lines, that runner is still valid. So your runner, you have a big red candle. So again, you could lock in profits there because many times a big candle is retraced. Big candle retraced. Big candle mostly retraced. And then here we had another candle, but then we also had VIX confirmation. So that helped us to know that we should lock in that runner because it might finally be changing. So that's how you combine VIX with with ES because we had some bounces here, but VIX was not agreeing with it, and it was only until VIX was agreeing with it where this seems to be lasting. So you can also see that starting here, this blue line is the buying pressure. It stays blue. We had a little bit of yellow there, but it's faint because I look at quite a few other things, and then so there's not enough agreement. So even though the bulls are starting to make a little bit of progress, it's not enough to give them the advantage. So you can see that this buying pressure or selling pressure, the blue line stayed blue all the way until we get here. So that's another thing that gives me a little bit more confidence to hold. If there's no change in color, then I can hold the runner a little bit longer because it's below the alpha zone. And then these red dots that looks at a few things, including MACD, and that will again, these are just all confirmations. But by the time that you have a color change, obviously you know that this could be a turn in the market, and there's no guarantee. But you don't want to hold too long and be too greedy and then give back all of your profits, because if you got here and you just kept holding, look at how much profits you're giving back. You worked so hard for the move, but if you didn't lock in on big candles, then basically you're giving that all back right there. Let's see, someone's typing something. um Yeah, so exactly. So ES rejected, and we did say that there was a double top there. So if you go to the 5 minute chart, what is 1 minute, so 5 minute. So you can see this double top rejection here on ES. So you see the pre-market levels, that blue line keeps track of where we have new highs. So you can see there clear rejection, and many times when you're not able to make more progress, you flush out, the weak hands, you get more bears to trap, you bounce off an upward sloping VWAP, which now gets all the bulls excited. They go back in, but then we rejected the same level. So you can see on the 5 minute this long wick there, this wick here, double top rejection, and that got all the bears excited. And then we had a little bit of a bounce to trap more. Um, and now, so I'm sorry, let me see. It's reading and talking and looking at 10 things is a little hard. Let's see. ES is rejected overnight low. Okay. Inch to push up. So overnight low. Let's see. So, so yeah, I mean, so we talked, the overnight low was there. And that's, so we talked about the failed breakdown on Friday. We talked about this failed breakdown. We talked about this failed breakdown. So those are all the reasons why ES moved up. But then this double top rejection is what got it to push lower. But again, um, over time you'll read more of that. But what I like to focus on is like look at the high level just so you have a feeling for what's going on. But then look at the indicators. I mean, so you see how, you know, if you get in too early, you're gonna get trapped. But if you wait for the signal down and then you wait for the bounce and get in and lock in profits on a big candle, how you made money. Then also the money flow, these big vertical bars, that's saying that there is the money flow is moving out. So that's again more confirmation. We talked about that multiple times. At this point, so we had a little bit of yellow buying pressure, okay, and that was due to these big moves. So this could become, bear trap. It's not very clean because there wasn't a great impulsive move down. So I wouldn't call this like a bear trap, like in a failed breakdown, like we usually talk about. But this could be where this level holds, and you can see the green dots saying that this is looking promising. Obviously, we still have the blue money flow, which is a little bit of concern because you could still have it go up to the VWAP and reject. And many times you'll see that when you have a long move like this, and then your first attempt many times just don't work out this well. And so many times it would reject here around the VWAP and then it'll go down. But I like to watch VIX and just see, what it does. And so you can see VIX is still looking like it's pulling back. Now, when it gets close to the 48 cloud, many times you will see it interact with it. You can see here this morning came down, rejected there. And you can see this too. Like, I mean, it's really important that you go back in history and you look at how things behave. So you can see VIX here, and it doesn't matter what time it is, but you can see it coming down. Boom. 48 cloud, bounce. 48 cloud, bounce. 48 cloud. Here it pokes through it a little bit, but then it bounces. So you gotta know that when you approach the 48 cloud, that things might change direction. So that's why you lock in profits when you get there. But when you look at this, so now again, we have yellow buying pressure, we have green dots. Um, the money flow is still a little bearish, but now if you caught this long here, now you got to be careful here because we have the pre-market low, we have the VWAP, and we could just as easily reject at these levels again. And you got to know that. So this is not the time to get into longs. Now, if you feel very bearish, obviously it would be a premature trade. But if you feel like this is still a short, then these are the levels at which you want to get back short. So if you say, look, it's going to be a red day today, I feel that it's going to go down. Uh, then this is the place to get into short. And again, the reason why it could be a short is because we're still You still have signal is not flipped yet. Uh, our alpha zone is not flipped yet. It's very close to, but it hasn't flipped yet. We're at the pre-market low. We're at the VWAP. So there's a lot of confluence. So these things will be strong resistance. And then we have VIX here that could bounce off this 48 cloud as well. Bottom line is this is not the time to take a long. If you wanted to take a long, you should have done it right there. Okay. Um, so I'm gonna open it up for questions right now, but I wanted to just explain, you know, how how I'm reading the charts. And again, there you have to also understand that at this spot, it's much easier to read than what it is to read it right here. Okay, because again, you have yellow buying pressure. I mean, so you have green dots. Okay, so you got to understand that the signals are more mixed at this point, which means that any trade you're going to take is more risky. But also getting bullish or long at the top of the range is uh, almost never a good idea because like so just draw a box around it, and so if you look at this move, we're at the top of the move. So even if it's a long, if you get in long here, this pullback could still stop you out, especially if you oversize. So you have to know that if you want a long, you want it to pull back closer to the alpha zone before you get in. Personally, I prefer to see what VIX does around this 48 cloud because it won't be a shocker if it bounces here and then we get a rejection close to the web. Um, but again, this is just not a good place to take any kind of trade. But if you are going to take a trade, then you want to take a short at the top and a long at the bottom or closer to the alpha zone. And that's just generally a good idea, where most traders will say, okay, it's going to break out now, so I'm going to get into a long right now. And that's exactly where you then lose, because even if you're right, many times you'll get a pullback first, like there. So if you said long here, there's a pullback, stopped out, and then it goes on without you. Because the market's job is to get you out of the trade and then make the move without you. And you have to realize that. Okay. Any questions now? Feel free to just open your mic. I'm not very good at reading text messages while looking at a million things, and so just open up your mic. Feel free to, and you don't have to ask questions. You can just give your view or your insights or your experiences so that we can all uh, help each other become better traders. Okay, so if there's no other questions, then again, I'll do what I think works out well is I will jump off the session and then obviously keep the charts going for people that want to look at that. And then when I see something that happens, I'll be just using this text channel here and post what I see. And if you read that message, just give me a thumbs up, because if I post a couple and there's no thumbs up, it means that no one's seeing it. You don't have to agree, but if no one reads it, it will tell me that everyone's off doing something else, and then I'll know to stop sending messages. Okay, so again, this is we'll wait a little bit here just to see what happens here at the VWAP, but you can see that's where I expect traders to take profit. So if you get into long down here, that's where you're going to take profit. That profit taking to take profit means that you're shorting. So you're basically shorting the market to take profit. When you short the market, all of those take profits push the price down. Also, bears that say, okay, this is a great time to give it another shot, they know that the best places to try is to do it at levels. Okay, so you have to understand why levels are more important than any indicator or anything else you can imagine. I love my indicators, I think they're amazing, but they are not important. They're not nearly as important as the levels. So you have to understand that when these levels come into play, that will get the masses involved. And the only way that you could change the direction is to get all of the bears to work together. Okay. And they know that the best time to give it a shot is when all the bulls are taking profit. So that's why it's not uncommon for these kind of moves to run out of steam around the VWAP area. And then again, we have confluence here with the VIX testing the 48 cloud, where if it decides to bounce, then there's a lot of confluence that could turn the market quickly. Now, again, I'm not saying this is a short. I'm saying you have to be careful with longs because if you get into long, you have to always say, what's my next profit target? And your next profit target should be VWAP. So if you get into long here, you know, is it really worth that little profit for the risk you're taking? Or do you want to wait to see more confirmation where it goes above it and then maybe come down and then bounce off the top of the VWAP before you get in? So you got to ask, like, what amount of profit can I get out of a long year? And it's just a very, I mean, it's a very small amount of profit that you're looking at if you take a long right here. Yeah, and guys, Asia Rue is we and Alice, they're really amazing traders. So if they say something, it's worth understanding what they're saying, because these guys are consistently profitable with many years of experience. So um, definitely um, learn from them. And Asia Rue is very humble. Now I'll say, no, I don't know what you're talking about, but I do. So again, so just watching price action here. Yeah, and it's true. Asia and I have learned a ton from each other. We've come from different angles, and actually, a lot of the indicators, a lot of the features, um, came about from just brainstorming with him and some of his ideas, and him challenging me on things. So that's always a good thing. Thanks, Alice. Yeah, and Alice is a great futures trader. And you guys should feel free to say this looks like a long or I'm taking a long, and everyone takes their own trades, but um don't I mean, I'm totally okay with everyone just saying, hey, I'm taking this. So you're not telling anyone else to do it, but you're taking it. So again, so we have yellow buying pressure up here. We have the green dots, which is nice. We have a green triangle. We have VIX making it a little murky as it decides. But again, like we said, if you wanted long, you get long close to the alpha zone. Okay. And then you got to know that your first profit target is the VWAP. So um, and if you already have a lot of profit for the morning, so you have to understand that the way you trade, your aggressiveness needs to be adjusted based on how much experience you have, but also how much profit you have from the morning. So that's why in the morning I usually try and lock in profits very quickly. So I trade one ES at a time. and I would lock in, two, $300, um, sometimes a little less, but I like to just get few base hits and just build up the profit, because then later in the day you can maybe hold it a little bit longer. Um, but it's really important that you try and not take risky trades, unless you have the experience to do that and you also have the profit build up during the day. At least that's how I think about it. I mean, you obviously, this is not financial advice. I'm not telling you what to do, but once your account goes red, that's when your emotions get involved and where you start, tilting and making bad decisions. So you got to realize that. And so if you can avoid that as far as possible, that's great. So I got all of the copy trading working this weekend for the guys on here that's on copy trading, and so all of that seems to be working well. I've been starting to integrate some of the Claude AI development, and so it was a little bit rough because it had to like figure out my environment and everything else. Plus, I need to do some cleanup, so I think I'm past most of that, and so I'll be spending most of my day coding that. We have some of the automated trades that sends really good signals, but for some reason, it's not always trading those. So I'll be spending uh, most of my time on the autopilot this week to get that trading consistently, and so we're pretty close to that. But again, that's just for some of the OGs here um, that uses all of that. Um, okay, if there's no other questions, I'm going to mute myself. I'm going to stay on here a little bit longer, just to see what happens here, and then if there's anything specific. But right now, it's trying to decide. Yeah, so Vix is saying, "Am I going to bounce?" And yes is saying, "I'm gonna reject the VWAP." But again, that's why you cannot get into longs at the VWAP. And you have to understand that this is most retail traders like VWAP is their number one tool, and so it becomes self-fulfilling. And there's a lot of good reasons why VWAP is a good thing to use, but when everyone uses the same tools, then it sort of becomes self-fulfilling, and you gotta know that, and you gotta know that they're gonna take profit, and that's why you're gonna expect a pullback. And sometimes it would just cut right through it to make it interesting. So this is NQ. You can see NQ very choppy here. So it already rejected, and now it's at the bottom Bollinger Band. Remember, so the thick white line, that's the VWAP. The thin ones, that's the Bollinger Band on the 10-minute chart. Price likes to stay inside of these Bollinger Bands. Okay, so you can see we got to the bottom, we bounced. Got to the bottom, bounce. And so it's not a guarantee, but it likes to. And if it stays outside of the Bollinger Band, then it becomes more of a trend move. Okay, so if we break below this white line down there and then we keep staying below it, then now you're starting to look at more of a trend move. So NQ very weak. Then ES, if we cannot break through the VWAP and we sit here for a while, then obviously you could have a hard flash. We have the yellow buying pressure, which means that the the buyers are making progress. We have the green dots, so um, I wouldn't. I don't like to trade against the buying pressure. So I have the signals. So I have the short signal here in the morning, but when I see yellow buying pressure, I'm totally not taking that. So you have to know when to ignore signals. Because there's going to be times if you see yellow buying pressure, you got to know that the short is riskier because the buyers are making progress. You see the green dots. So all of those things say, hey, this is not, shorts are not, shorts are risky. I mean, any trade you take is has risk to it, but you want to stack the odds in your favor, if that makes sense. So let's take a look at so VIX. So it looks like VIX wants to just go through the 48 cloud. That's good. NQ still choppy. Okay, so I'm gonna leave this chart up because I think this is the better one. You can see again this bounce here. The closer you get into this bounce, the better. But you can see VIX immediately, and we talked about it. These big blue candles going down, alpha zone inverting, staying below it, respecting it. Yellow buying pressure. So there were plenty of opportunities to get in at the alpha zone, but when you get close to the VWAP, that's not the time to do it. So I want you to look at, so this is, so we had a big green candle. If you're in long, obviously you take profit on big green candles. Now you have much bigger red candle here, and it's at the VWAP. So you have to understand that that's what happens. Now it doesn't mean it's a short, okay? It's not what it means. Um, but you have to understand the risk of getting in longs at these levels. And I have an important call that's coming in, so I think we're pretty much done with all of the questions. So I'm gonna just mute myself, and then like I said, I'll pop in when it makes sense again, or if I see anything. But this is exactly what we were afraid of, or you know, possibly could happen, was the rejection at the VWAP, especially because VWAP is testing the 48 cloud, and then it's going to fool you by pretending to go through it before it bounces, and it could still go up. I mean, ES could still go up. You got to know that this is not a short. While you're at the 48, while you're at the VWAP, it becomes more choppy until it makes up its mind. But you can see VIX looks like it clearly wants to bounce here, which could be a good short, and especially because NQ is so weak as well.